Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism. So here's a question. What do you think the difference is between a lack of empathy and sadism? Let's take that question on. And if you have any thoughts as to the answer, please drop them in the comments. And if you've gone through enough of a long enough lack of empathy, you'd feel like it's sadistic, but there's definitely a difference between a lack of empathy and sadism. So let's start with this idea of a lack of empathy, which is central and core to understanding narcissism. Lack of empathy is a lack of understanding or willingness to understand or experience any kind of emotional sort of connection or awareness to the emotional state of another person. Remember, with empathy, you don't have to have gone through what that person went through or have ever felt it yourself or, again, been through it. You don't even have to agree with their feelings. Empathy is about meeting someone where they are at. In addition, empathy is about self-awareness. It's about how you sort of show up in a situation, awareness of what you say, how you choose your words. For example, laughing really loudly outside of a funeral home where people are coming out of a funeral, that isn't self-aware. Making jokes about people who are out of work around someone who recently lost a job, not self-aware. So, lack of empathy can be experienced in many different ways, like someone who is clueless or careless or cold or callous or insensitive. It can also be coupled with other things like gaslighting or someone who doubts your emotional experience when you are struggling with something. Lack of empathy, like I said, is a main driver in why narcissistic relationships are so invalidating. Sometimes someone just saying that they get it or understanding why we are having a hard time or how we are doing. It may not change anything, but may leave us feeling seen and heard and felt and understood and simply better able to withstand life. Some people think a lack of empathy is sadistic. It's not really. Sadism is a whole nother game. It's actually a person deriving some pleasure or gratification from another person's suffering. It's dark and mercifully somewhat rare, though a malignant narcissistic person seeking out vengeance on someone that they perceived had wronged them may derive pleasure from watching an ex-spouse's life fall apart or a former business partner lose everything. It takes that lack of empathy and elevates it to more of an enjoyment. The person who merely lacks empathy isn't getting pleasure out of the other person's pain or struggle or loss or whatever it is they're going through. They simply can't be bothered to notice it if it has nothing to do with them. They just don't care. Obviously, that's not a good feeling. It's a terrible feeling, but it's not sadism. As with a lot of these concepts related to narcissism and psychopathy, they all sort of nest within each other. Listen, all sadistic people lack empathy, but definitely not all people who lack empathy are sadistic. Mercifully, sadism is actually pretty rare in the narcissism universe. We may see it in severe, malignant, dark tetrad types, but that's really about it. It's not uncommon in psychopathy, but psychopathy is not common. I know many of you think that lack of empathy feels sadistic, that you're going through something painful and a person could just walk by you. Listen, most unempathic people, they aren't paying enough attention to you to even recognize what is happening to you, and as a result, aren't paying enough attention to your suffering to even derive pleasure from it because they're not noticing you. I hope that clears that distinction up. I know that lack of empathy feels awful and it can feel intentional. Sadism is leveling up a bit. Again, it's deriving joy from someone else's suffer, struggle, pain, or loss. Lack of empathy is just that incapacity, unwillingness, inability to connect to it. And in many ways, at a very basic level, it's simply not caring. Hope that clears it up, and thanks again.